Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are talking all about the moon. We have a full moon coming up on the 12th, May 12th, as well as the energies at play, because here's the thing. This moon is called the flower moon, but the energetics of this flower moon are not just bright and floral and happy and light. There's so much more. So we're gonna dive into what the moon has to share and also what the energetics are saying right now, because we know that May is a very powerful, kind of chaotic month, but it can also be a very transformational month in a really good way. So we're going to dive into that. So all to say, welcome everyone, and we're so happy to have you here.
Welcome.
Welcome and sleep.
Yeah.
Is everyone really tired? Elyse and I were talking about how incredibly tired we feel this week.
Yeah.
It's just been a lot.
Yeah. I mean I've had the plague, excuse me, for like 2 weeks now. Um and it's been rough. So I am definitely feeling that. But even as I'm coughing a lot still, but I'm shifting out of that like sickness part and it's just kind of like my body recovering after the fact and still coughing up a lung. And there just has felt this like I want to say heaviness, not in a like icky, sad, bad way. Like a lot of times we'll talk about heavy energy as like being like oppressive feeling or so. It's felt like I've been carrying around a backpack of rocks like
Mhm.
all day, every day. And no matter how much I'm sleeping, no matter how well I sleep, um, I wake up in the morning just feeling like I've been through a slog. And on that note, and I know you and I have talked about this, dreams have been
Yes.
weird and
Yes.
and like they haven't been super prophetic for me, I don't think, because they're just like random and people in them that I'm like, why are you in my dream? And dreaming about odd things and
Mhm.
oftentimes excuse me, with a lens of like I'm in some sort of weird situation that I'm uncomfortable with.
Me too.
And I wake up being like, what the F was that?
Yes.
Not a
Oh,
fan.
who
Oh,
who agrees? Right?
meow.
Do you agree? It's crazy out there. I know.
I'm just gonna say,
I
everyone, buckle up for like a weird episode. I just feel it.
think so too.
I
Do
have
you
a
want to read this
plague.
out?
Kuma's joining in. We're
Yeah.
both tired.
She's so old too that like you can't ignore her when she meows at you,
No.
because I don't know if she fully can hear anymore.
Hmm.
I think she hears, but like you can't ignore her kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's like this is not allowed. Um,
No.
so okay, let's go with okay. I have so many ways I want to start this. So, first of all, I have been noticing in dream state, there is this, like you said, this kind of like warpy nature, this sort of infiltration into the dream state. And it correlates to this rising of the masculine, is what Spirit told me. There's this rising of the masculine happening, but there's also this like attempting to warp the masculine. And when
Hmm.
I first kind of came across that, I was like, I don't really understand. Like, why does it have to be that way? And it's almost like when you get an influx of light, you're also going to get the dark that is going to try to balance out the light, right? Because it doesn't want the light gaining momentum. Just like if there was an influx of dark, you're going to get a rising of the light, right? That's just what we get.
Hmm.
So with this, though, there's this rising of the masculine, but there's this kind of like pesky lower frequency masculine trying to rise into it, which is creating like such a whirl. And it's this whirl within the energetics of power, because the masculine represents, like if we look at it like tarot, um, or even just general divine masculine and feminine. Feminine is the creative part, masculine is the action part, which is why we have that all within us, both masculine and feminine. So with this rising of the masculine, you're having action on those that are carrying the light frequencies, but you're also having action on those carrying the dark frequencies. So that's why we're in a time of kind of prophetic dreams, but there's the action of both the light and the dark getting into that dream state. So it can make the dreams feel really perplexing. Like
Hmm.
really confusing. And you're like, why is that there? What's mine? What's not mine? What's the message? And I think the takeaway right now is look to kind of the theme points in the dream versus the details. Like, just what is the general theme?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the feeling you were trying to accomplish? If you take away any kind of fear, anxiety, trepidation of the dream,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the feeling of what you want. And if you think about it too, with this kind of polarity of the light and the dark through that masculine principle, didn't you say the moon had a very strong energy to Scorpio? Is the moon in Scorpio?
Yeah, so it's a full moon in Scorpio, which there's some intensity, emotion. I'm reading off of Chris Corsini's email because I kept hearing things like, oh, it's like a flower moon. And I'm like, it doesn't feel flowery. And because I've been so sick, I've kind of just been like, what? And not really paying much attention to it. And so, of course, his email is in my inbox today, but it's a full moon in Scorpio. Um, and the moon sits opposite of the Taurus sun, illuminating tension between inner transformation and outer stability. Where have you been holding on to comfort, control, or routine? And then there's Uranus in Taurus, which adds a layer of unpredictability, sudden insights, revelations, or emotional upheavals may crack open your illusion of stability. But it's
Mm-hmm.
all about liberation. So even on the point of what you were making of the dream, like one of the dreams that stood out to me that was, I was like, it was so random and just so that, but there was this part of me in it that was put in a really uncomfortable situation. And I had to like in this dream have a voice for myself. And so to your point, not getting caught up in the details was like the most random people that I'm like, why these people don't even know, why would they all be in a room in a dream together? I
Mm-hmm.
think I was singing karaoke, like I had to sing karaoke or something. I don't know. There was so much weirdness to it. That was just kind of the end part that I remember. But the core theme of it was being put in a really uncomfortable situation where I had to like hold steady, stand my ground, and use my voice to, as I'm coughing, to um, like speak what I needed. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, zooming out, it's like, oh, okay, that can make some sense. Um, but getting hung up in the details and like the warpiness of it,
Yeah.
um, yeah, not super
Yeah.
helpful. But that kind of greater theme really aligns with
Yeah.
some of the astrology for this
Yeah.
month.
And that's that rising of the masculine energy, right? Like in the dream, you needed to speak up, you needed to use
Mm-hmm.
your voice, you needed to
Yeah.
take that action. So we can see it in a lot of different ways. Um, but what's interesting is Scorpio, the energies of Scorpio, especially the moon in Scorpio. Moon is like, the hidden parts, the depths, the emotional part.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scorpio itself is like the underbelly experiences, the
Mm-hmm.
passion experiences, but also the underbelly. And the underbelly, I mean by like the deep depths of experiences. So, like death, transformation, sex. Uh, what was the other one? There's another one. Death. There's another one with Scorpio, but like they're like the base primal
Mm-hmm.
emotions are heightened right now with a desire for action in it, but also this distortion in it because of the polarity of light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's kind of it's a moon to not take it personally, right? Like don't think it's you. It's
Mm-hmm.
more like notice what's happening and like you said, pull back, knowing what the kind of energetic themes are so that you can start to make sense of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's deep, passionate things, like whole body experiences can be very, very triggering, very unnerving, very unsettling. There's that anxiety energy, but it's just asking you to notice what parts are coming out because of it. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
actually very illuminating, right? Because that's the whole
Mm-hmm.
purpose of full moons is to illuminate. And so one thing Spirit's showing me is like, if you think that the concept of a flower, the flower blossoms and it's beautiful as it begins to blossom, but then it reveals everything inside of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like all the way in, you see the stamen, you see everything. And that's what this moon is trying to get you to is the very inner core of it. So we have to not be we have to not be scared of it or chicken. We
Hmm.
have to be willing to go in with the wisdom that we have.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've also noticed, excuse me, and this kind of like correlates to you were speaking to, or like when we were chatting beforehand, even in the past couple weeks, there's been this really like up and down energy and kind of wobbly. And that's manifested for me as like some days feeling quite grounded and like, okay, everything's fine. And then other days feeling this like heightened anxiety energy in my body. And like through my somatic work, I can really separate like, okay, is this my brain or is this like something happening in my body? And when it's in my body, is it an energy or is it something that's mine that I need that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
is coming up? And um there was a couple days where I could just feel this like anxious energy and I could notice my brain being like, okay, what are we anxious about? What are we anxious about? And like looking for things in my life to attach onto that, but really noticing that the feeling was there before
Mm-hmm.
the the brain tried to find something to like pick apart and latch onto. But then also with that, noticing that there, so that was kind of cropping up, and then it would be like it would feel a little more grounded and calm one the next day, and then or even like the next hour, and then things like situations, uncomfortable situations, triggering situations, and coming up in a way that is very um like random, and that
Yeah.
a lot of things would have to align for that specific situation to happen. And in that moment I would feel like, well, what the heck, like why, you know, and I'd
Yeah.
my brain would have a little like, well, why do I have to experience that, and that sucks, and um but stepping back and looking at it as like, okay, that's poking at something had like
Mm-hmm.
these circumstances aligned for this thing to happen, for you to experience it in this moment, to then be able to step back and be like, okay, this is poking at something. And when I
Mm-hmm.
step back, and especially from a more grounded energy, um being able to step back and be like, okay, that was poking at a wound that's there. This situation is really bringing that up. Where can you, again, it's being highlighted, where can you let it go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that up and down energy, even over the past couple of weeks, like not right before this moon, but it feels like the energy has been kind of primed for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then and then you add the energetics of May, which is very glitchy, right? There's lots of glitches happening, like reality glitches. When I say glitches, I mean that. I mean, you park your car in one spot one day, and then you get there at the end of the day and your car is not in that spot. And then you realize it's in a completely different spot, but you have no memory of parking it in that different spot. Like things that will make you question your sanity, but are actually these glitches and these glitches in reality. And it's the most mind-bending thing to actually try and figure out because we want to linearly understand it, but it's like glitches in the matrix, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you add that on top of these very triggery energies. But it's funny as I'm talking, Spirit's like, but you know why this is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And the reason why is because enough people have raised their consciousness that we can be in these heavier energies, more challenging experiences because we carry the wisdom to move through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're showing me right now when you start to hack through the matrix, as people call it, right? Like break through the matrix, if we use that term. When you start to do that, you start to dismantle reality, and you have to have a certain level of consciousness to be able to recognize the dismantling of your reality while still living in that reality. Because if you don't have the consciousness to it, you won't be able to follow it at all. Like it'll just, I mean, I think that's where some people shift into completely different realities and lose touch with this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, it's very timely as to why things are happening right now and why it's glitchy and why all of this is happening. It's because it's the rising of consciousness. But when it doubles up with intense moons or certain planetary alignments. Um, Even the energetics of how the poles are like moving around a lot, the energetics, the magnetism on the planet is moving a lot. Plus, we're in a massive solar cycle peak right now, too. So we have more sun flares. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. That's the doubling, tripling down that Spirit's talking about. They're like, it's all converging right now, shifting your concept of reality, but it's with purpose to break
Mm-hmm.
through the confines of the matrix as it is, if we want to use that. So there's my spirit tangent. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, that's why, though. This
Yeah.
is why. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's funny sometimes that you can have these like these awarenesses from spirit, and like how the human brain can just kind of like lose that in the midst of the
Yes.
chaos, and then you're like, what is going on? And then they're like, dummy, we've told you like 17 times. You wrote it in your journal
Yes.
5 days ago. What you asked yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's that like, especially, and we talked about this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, um, that there's a lot of like contrast in our experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's when you brought through like, oh my gosh, my brain's losing it. That these aren't normal times. We're not
Yeah.
experiencing things in a traditional or normal, quote unquote, whatever that means, way.
Yeah.
So there might be like the basis of even the energy of this moon, and then the way in which we're actually experiencing it might be drastically different. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we've often talked about this, and this is something that, I think is important to always remember, that like we can say, oh, this moon is about this, and this is happening with this, and blah, blah. That might not be your experience at all. And I think now more than ever, that's potentially the case. Um, and to like continually come back to, okay, but what is true for me in this moment? Maybe you can pick
Mm-hmm.
up pieces of the themes and apply those in certain ways. um but that like what we're sharing about how the energy has felt for us in the last few weeks might be totally different for you. um Nothing is like usual as usual right now. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
really fits into um the like traditional molds that we understand
Yeah.
in this life. And so it can feel very like, huh. And I think that's why one of the reasons why we might lose sight of that, like, oh, right, but I have an understanding of why this is happening, because your brain is just
Mm-hmm.
searching for like something in the chaos to reorient to.
Yeah. And I think there's also this like, there's a skill that has to be learned to be able to balance the knowing of the changes of your reality and still living in big chunks of 3D reality and knowing you're in both, right? Like there's a certain
Mm,
skill to walking in both worlds because if I think about it, like for those of you watching that are very intuitive or mediums or healers, when you work in those other realms, you're kind of working in like another dimensional space. Obviously, it's higher dimensional consciousness.
mm-hmm,
But then you also have your regular life here. So you have to walk in both worlds. And so I think that same principle is applying to more people as their consciousness is expanding right now and they're coming into whether it's different thought patterns, different ideas. They might be thinking new thought patterns, new ideas, new ways of living, but they also live in a denser reality also in their interactions with people at the bank or at the grocery store or
mm-hmm,
at their kids' school. Like a lot of us are realizing now that we're walking in two worlds and that that is actually a thing,
mm-hmm,
right? That's part of that like breaking through thing. So it can be very confusing. And it is such a good point that sometimes our brains, like you and I even, we get totally thrown back into 3D and then we have to be like, wait a minute,
mm-hmm,
hold on. What do I actually know right now? And like you said, step away. That stepping away perspective is always an amazing recalibration.
mm-hmm,
It just takes like breath and space.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like we could do a full episode on like what what does it mean to actually live a spiritual life,
Yeah.
because I think for me there's a lot of different ways in which, like, a lot of different opinions that people would
Yeah.
have on that. and it can look very different for a lot of people. And then we each have to kind of suss that out for ourselves. But to your point, it's this, I think we're, like you said, we're becoming more and more aware of like the way in which this experience can be so contrasting. And that's a hard thing for our brains. Our brains don't really love that. We want like predictability and what we deem as safe and what we can, predict and like plan for. That's the word I was looking for. And how we can create stability. And sometimes in that contrast, there's like a back and forth that happens that is the opposite of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wild.
Wild times. I say that every week.
I know, right? But it's so true. It's a weekly thing. It's just like it is so incredibly true. It's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know many like astrologers or spiritual people or that feel like this year is chill in any way, shape, or form. There's like little like boop pockets of it to kind of rest and recharge and plug back in. But there's just a lot happening.
And at the same time, though, it's this brand new cycle. Like Spirit has been saying, 2025 to 2028 is a new cycle. Every year will get more intense, but every year you will have more clarity. Like you'll be able to see through the BS. So like you're getting wiser, but it's more intense. So you're being put to the test, but you have your wisdom to rely on. So you're getting better at it. Like it's, they're showing it to me like it's really climbing a ladder. Right? But with purpose. And it's interesting to see it unfold.
Yeah.
And they're like, remember again, you're here purposely right now for a reason, like all of us, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, sometimes we're like, really? Really?
Are we sure I chose this one?
Did I read the contract fully?
Super sure. Yeah. And, they're saying to me too, like, what does it mean for it to be chill or for it to be intense? Like, those aren't necessarily bad things, right? Like for some of us, an intense workout is amazing. For some of us, an intense workout destroys us, right? It's just about the space that your body's in. And that's not a judgment thing. It's just like what you're conditioned for. For some of us, a chill weekend is really challenging for our nervous system to sit in because we're primed to be overly busy and we can't slow down and we can't And for other people, being in the present moment and just kind of flowing with things and having more of that chill experience is wonderful. Again, not a judgment either way. It just kind of can be. Sometimes we desire one, but the reality of the situation is that we're experiencing another. So that neither are good or bad. And we're learning, we're growing, we're navigating a lot, and that's tiring, right? Like there's an energy output that happens with that. And so, it's not a shame thing of if you deem chill or intense as good or bad. It's just, again, illuminating, and putting a lot of labels or meaning on that maybe doesn't need to be there. And maybe part of it is that I need other ways to rest and recharge.
Yeah, I agree.
To navigate.
I agree. Well, I mean, I think that's a really good point to ponder as we kind of take in this energy of the moon, right? Like the moons are here to illuminate something, and the best thing we can do is work with it, right? We can't control the energies that the moons bring and what cycle they're in and what sign they're in because there's purpose behind the signs and how they cycle, but we can utilize it. Like if we are aware of it, we can use it to our advantage and make the most of it. They're showing me like the image of like a little river that's by your house, right? Like great to have a river, but if you use the energy of the river, you can put it into creating power, right? Like you put a wheel in there, a water wheel, right? Like you can use the energy to create so much more in your life. So instead of just having a river, now you have power being generated, right? Like So they like take the knowledge and generate what you want from it,
Mm-hmm.
which I just think is so neat. So,
Mm-hmm.
any other last points?
I don't think so.
No, feels fine.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
feels
All
complete.
right. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. And may you have a beautiful experience with this moon. May it help you grow into who you truly are inside so that you feel it and you embody that. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all again next week.